And in typical fashion, it's a Gawain chapter where everything goes wrong. I mean, that's just, yeah.
Yes. Very, very wrong. So wrong.
It goes wrong in the chapter, and it's going wrong for us, too.
Yeah, so SpoilerCon, gonna keep dripping out that regular reminder that SpoilerCon will be held October 1st through 3rd in Portland, Oregon. Assuming we get to have a physical con, there will be an online component, regardless of if we have it on physically or not. There will be information on the venue, registration, and art contest coming out. A call for proposals for things to do, for things to bring to the table, your own selves, is the next big piece of news to come out, probably. That's going to be coming out soon. So get your creative juices flowing. Think how you might want to participate as more than just an attendee. If you've ever wanted to give a lecture on, the mysterious snakes in the swamps of the Drowned Lands, SpoilerCon may be the time for that. Details forthcoming.
Wacky theories. Yep.
Yeah, whatever. We're working on a proposal for that. That will come out. So just start thinking about that. And you can follow us on Twitter at SpoilerCon. Subscribe to our newsletter at bit.ly/SConNews for updates. Just stay posted. Things are happening, I promise. And then the other piece of news is that we have patrons to thank because a bunch of you have joined since we last did the list.
Yes. So I wanted to go through. Today I have 33 patrons to thank. It's gotten a little jumbled, so it's actually not in temporal order anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and start at the top of the list and work my way down it. But this is everybody since November. It was the last time we thanked patrons, so about every 3 months we get to do this, and that gives us a good number of people to say thank you to. So starting at the top, Sonia Fisher, Jack Maestri, Caitlin Howard, Orestes Ortega, Gabrielle Spadarato. How would you say that one? Gabrielle Spadarato?
Spadarato? Yeah, I think.
Amis, must be coming out from the World of Dreams.
Oh dear, we've got a wise one following us. Ooh. Oh, and Jack is Jack of the Shadows, who's here for a recording.
Oh, so, of course.
Hi,
hey, Jack.
You get to hear your name live and in the real recording.
Always fun when that works out. And I also next have Plato's Notebook, and I believe...
that's Catload of
Chaos also here.
Thank you very much.
Lauren Lampson, Justin Cassanader, Kim Lefevre. Jor Evansine.
That sounds like an Ashaman name, just gonna say.
Yeah, or like an Age of Legends. Mm-hmm. Jor Eden Everseen. Like, you should have some sort of middle name with you if you get your accomplishments.
Yeah, it's really got that energy.
Lisa, nice and quick. Astaroth, Nathan Fitzpatrick, There's a lot of ways
I like that pronunciation better. So, that's Fitzpant. Apparently in Discord. Oh, we've got a lot of people getting thanked in Discord today. This is fun.
Excellent. Yes, that's good. Jim DeWicki. Lindsay Werner. David Green. NK Genesit. Thank you, MK.
Hey, MK.
I gotta say, I did see a license plate the other day that made me think of you, because it was like 695 MMK. And I was like, oh, it's MK. That is I'm sure it's totally not how to say your last name. Give me, since you're here, throw me a pronunciation guide. Janest? I probably put an extra syllable in there.
Is it Janest?
Is it Janest or Johnest?
Because we're West Coasters and don't know how to pronunciate things.
Same as Genesis, so...
Oh, Janest.
Janest. What's amazing is how many different perturbations of pronunciation you can get with the same letters. English doesn't have rules, and then the fact that names aren't necessarily English names, so they get all pronounced all wacky anyway.
Yeah, geologists are nice people, but don't take us for granted.
For granted. Granite?
Well, because nice is a pun too, but it's pronounced exactly the same as nice. And then granite is like a really corny, dumb thing, but I enjoy it because there's actually a true pun at the beginning and you just wouldn't know. Anyhow, we're distracted.
Jacob Ling Peterson, Latasha Boyd, Aaron Bruff, Katie Zhang, Ray, Mike Keating, Susanna Montague, The Other Boot.
The Other Boot, that's a Matt inspired.
That's definitely a Matt one. Chris McIntyre, Michaela Rustand, John Windsor, Jason Lewis. Big thanks to Matthew And a huge thanks to Robin Propst.
Wow, thanks everyone. That's a lot of new names.
It's definitely a good number of names. Really appreciate that, guys. Your support means everything, especially over the last couple of months.
And the enthusiasm represented by that support doesn't hurt our egos in the slightest.
Nope, not in the slightest.
We could use it, we need a little ego boosting now and then.
Oh yeah, we love it when our ego gets boosted.
And it was really cool that so many of you were here in live to.
Yeah, that's always nice when we get like the most recent donors are like they donate because they want to come to the live shows for a while and they get to be there for the ones. But then we also love a few of you who come back week after week after week too. So both of those are wonderful.
Yeah, you guys are all great. Even the people that just come once and then that's it. We never hear from you again. You're still great. You're still great. You're all great. You're all wonderful people who are sharing your time with us, and that's really special.
And hey, if you donate and never come to a live, that's okay too.
That's absolutely okay.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
All right, well, since we've had about 15 minutes of lead-in, are you ready to dig into the final part of the prologue of Crown of Swords?
Final prologue.
Final prologue. It's
not the
not
final
the final
prologue. It's
prologue.
the final part of the middle
The
of the
final
prologues.
part
But
of
yes,
the prologue. Yeah, no.
I am very ready to get out of Lightnings and into the book proper.
Right? Yeah, I'm like, okay, we've getting to that point where I'm like, one more side character, two more. Okay. Although I do got to say, the death of Patron Nile is a great scene. I always forget that this is in a prologue.
Yeah, it's almost like a throwaway, right? Because it's in the prologue, but it's so epic.
It is pretty epic.
Other Lord Captain Commanders had died this way, but it is never gonna be me. No.
I never thought Omirna. Like, seriously?
Right?
That's why it worked. You never thought it would be Omirna, and of course, it was. Hadron Nile grunted as Morghese placed a white stone on the board with a smile of triumph. Lesser players might set 24 more stones each yet, but he could see the inevitable course now, and so could she. In the beginning, the golden-haired woman seated on the other side of the small table had played to lose, to make the game close enough to be interesting for him. But it had not taken her long to learn that led to obliteration, not to mention that he was clever enough to see through the subterfuge and would not tolerate it. Now she piled all her skill and managed to win nearly half their games. No one had beaten him so often in a good many years. The game is yours, he told her, and the Queen of Andor nodded. Well, she would be queen again, he would see to that. In green silk with a high lace collar brushing her chin, she looked every inch a queen, despite the sheen of perspiration on her smooth cheeks. Perspiration. She hardly appeared old enough to have a daughter Elaine's age, although much less a son, Gawain's.
It's so, sexy. Because it's like, he grunts, she smiles, they're playing with all their skill.
There's some back and
The
forth.
subterfuge is out of there, she means it as flirting, but this is written to be, actually sexy. A
little bit.
This is, court-grade sexy, chivalric kind of sexy. Even though I do not ship them in the slightest. It's written that way.
It's also very much written as a analogy. What's going on the board is an analogy to what's going on in their actual relationship. In terms of the manipulation, where he's trying to basically use the queen on the board to take the kingdom, and manipulating her. And in the beginning, she was trying to deceive him, but now they go face to face. And, yes, that's what's going on the board, but it's also what they're doing in real life when they're trying to manipulate each other. And in a lot of ways, their relationship is so focused on the board that they don't realize that the rest of the world is going on around them. And, someone's coming in to just overturn the board, and it doesn't matter where their pieces are. Because,
yeah,
Shan-Chan,
totally.
frankly.
Yeah, no, they are definitely the pigeon that just shits all over the board and knocks the pieces everywhere and declares victory. That's compared to them, compared to what they're doing, they're playing by the old rules, right? and they think they have time. They think this is just normal politics. Granted, it's unusual in Andor's history, but it's not. Yeah, like Omerna comes out of the blue, and then the Shanshan come out of the blue. This is all set up for nothing.
What's the saying? I'm not even gonna get it close enough. It was something like you sit down in a chair across your opponent, make them think you're gonna play the game, and just when they settle down, you punch them in the face, and that's how you win.
Rand's approach to Grandal at Natron Sparrow.
I was gonna say I couldn't remember, for some reason I was thinking it was from Firefly, the show.
No, that is a very Jane attitude, but no, that is specifically when Rand is explaining to Ramshalon his plan for dealing with Grandal in Natron Sparrow.
That's right.
And it's a very Two Rivers approach. You punch him in the face. He's like the fourth Two Rivers person to use the punch the magic user in the face strategy.
And again, the scene specifically I'm thinking of in Firefly is when he's negotiating with the butcher, and he's like, I'm going to give the money back, and he says, no deal, I'll hunt you down. And instead, can he negotiate? He just pushes him into the engine and moves on to the next guy. He's like, we're not negotiating. Like, this is not what that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very similar strategy, for sure.
We get a little bit about how young Morghese looks. We know that's because she's slowed from the channeling.
Yep, and, of course, even though Niall is not really thinking of her in that way, he's thinking of her in that way, so...
Man.
We've got her eyes, if only she wasn't touched by the witches, if only I was 25 years younger. It's like, how old are you that you're like, I need to be 25 years younger to even begin to considering this be decent? Like, how old are you? I think he's like 90.
I would say late 70s, early 80s.
No, it's more than that. Because it says... His hands had not trembled since he was a boy facing his first battle more than 70 years ago. So he had to have been at least 15, say, to be a boy in his first battle. And that was 70 years ago. So he's 85 at minimum.
Depends on, there are some young boys who end up in battle. So it does depend. I think, we could go as low as 12 and say early 80s maybe. As late.
Yeah.
No, we could also check and see if he has a birth date on the wiki.
Yeah, the wiki's probably wrong, though. I mean, the wiki's closer than my companion, which is all the way on the other side of my desk. Which, trust me, guys, I am built into this thing like Mission Control with the cameras and the lights and the screens.
Date of birth was 9/11.
And it's 9/99 when the story opens?
Mm-hmm. So he is 88.
88.
So you were right on with that. His first battle was as a White Cloak in 9/28, so he was 17. 17.
Okay, I roughed it in pretty good.
You roughed it in really good. That was very impressive. But yeah, super old. He is not even 20 years younger, and he would be 68. And
she's in her 50s, right? No, she's in her 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she had kids young and she's slowed. She's in her 40s, yeah. I mean, slowing doesn't change her chronological age, but yeah, she had kids young because she's a princess. So,
buddy, you're way out of the half again plus 7 range.
Yeah. But it's, at the same time, she's doing a barrel lane, right? She's using her sex appeal as a political tool. It has nothing to do with age appropriate or relationship or love. It's all about politics and they're both adults. They've both been around the block for a minute. It's not like she's an innocent waif offering up to someone who's really horrible. She's like, I'm willing to play that game and see where that goes. He's old, but it's not like it's too creepy.
He talks about how she only signed because he backed her in a corner, and the way they're playing these stones off of each other. There's just a lot of, again, this sort of back and forth game playing between them that would matter on a longer time scale and in different circumstances. But they both become very irrelevant pretty much at the end of this chapter, because any hope of Morghese having any power died with Patron Niall. And then what little, and we get to see her hit rock bottom, and then the Shanshan show up. Yeah,
this is really about wrapping up her character development as a defeated queen. I think that's as much what this chapter is about as anything, is giving us a little bit more character development before she gets cast out.
Right. And we see the next few events, the rape by Valda and the torture by Asanawa shake her confidence on a whole nother level. They really do her in pretty hard.
Yeah, and then right when she's teetering on the edge, the Shan show up and say, slavery or death or subservience. So this is the last of Morgaze. This is the last of Morgaze.
I would say
really.
the last of Queen Morgaze.
Yeah, because then she goes into Nadir Morgaze, and then she becomes Magdan in the aftermath. This is her last huzzah. The end of this chapter, when Pedro Nile dies, Queen Morgaze is effectively dead.
And because shortly after this, doesn't she swear, once she realizes that she's, like, under the control of Asanawa, doesn't she basically swear, like, I will never become...
The irrevocable words happen after the Shan takeover.
Okay.
Because she doesn't want to be used as a political pawn by enemies she can't even anticipate, right? The White Cloaks are at least the devil she knows. And when the Shan show up with all their new rules, she's like, no, I can't be a pawn in that. So that's when she speaks the irrevocable words.
Do you think they'd collar her?
They would find out that she had been trained at the tower. Yeah, they would figure that out. No, Surath says, I know you were trained at the tower, and I will protect you from being collared if you play by my rules. She says that, and that's when Morgaze is like, nope, we are ditching the queenship right now. I mean, 20 minutes later, but yeah, because she doesn't believe Surath's eyes in the slightest, which is fair. But I do wonder if they would have... I mean, would it be worth collaring her as far as, like, wasting a Suldom on... and an Idom? Like, would she even... Is she strong enough to be worth it?
I imagine she'd be a neglected horse.
Right? Like, the lowest ranked Tuldom could, like, practice on her.
Right.
Right? Like, just the pony that, like, rides the little kids around in the... Yeah.
And, I mean, there's always more Suldom than Damane, because obviously there's more women who can learn to channel than have the spark. Although that balance may change a little bit as they start to capture people from Westlands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, because they're definitely culling their population because of the way that they collect everyone and then don't let them breed.
But there is that, like, oh, if this somehow you make a mistake with this Damane, like, she's not going to exactly, like, burn down the place. You know, or
right,
like,
right. She's a little pew-pew,
yeah,
you know?
right, like, she made it the flag wave, oh no, you know, like, danger.
Right.
Yeah, I can totally see her as, like, the training Damane. And then she just ends up being neglected for the most part. Yeah, sad existence. Sad
Yeah, that's
existence.
not... I'm glad that she didn't have to deal with the Shan like ever, because that would have sucked. And this is also a chapter in which we get that last emphasis on how tough she is, right? We see her go through a lot of really, really crappy times, and it's easy to, like, get frustrated with her, but, like, Niall here is thinking, like, she's really tough for being so beautiful. No, scratch that. She's just tough. She's just tough. Beauty has nothing to do with it, which, like, honestly, never has to do with it. But it's nice to have a character in RJ's world who's, like, a super patriarchal douchebag, respecting it, and noticing and respecting exactly how tough this particular character is. So when she goes through all this crap, she's going through a lot of crap, and she comes through it.
She does.
Despite everything. She's really tough.
Pretty tough for a girl. Pretty tough for Rambo. Definitely one of those sort of characters, secondary characters, who goes through so much and yet still manages to come out the other side as a respectable, there's times when she doesn't always treat her friends well and her allies well. That's definitely something that she has to go through, where she has to readjust to not being the ruler, not being dominant over them, but actually sort of being their equal. But she does come out the other end, I think, a better person for it.
Yeah, no, it's a long process, but, like, a lot happened to her. It's not going to happen. Recovery's not going to be quick.
So, obviously, she's asking for her son because that's one of the levers that Patron Nile has over her, one of the moves that she's trying to make. You know, he clearly is dominating in there. That's one of the reasons why she's working at such a position of disadvantage over him, because he has her son, he has her in captivity, he has the troops. She has nothing except her title and her face.
So she's like, well, maybe I can make him feel a little more emotionally soft to me if I play the mother card. And, like, meanwhile, he's sitting across the table from her being like, I'd tap that if I was younger. Too bad I have to give her to the headsman when I'm done admiring how much I'm not going to tap that. It's like...
Yeah.
I'm not sad that you died, dude. Like, I'm really not. As much as I don't like what happens after, but...
I do find it interesting that he hasn't told Galad that he has his mother.
See, that is one of those moments where I'm like, this is how you know you're the bad guy, is when you know that you don't want to tell the paladin what you're doing. That's how you know you're the bad guy, is if the paladin wouldn't approve.
Also, you have his mother captive.
He's this honor-bound person. He's this oath-driven, duty-bound, best officer ever. Best not to put a strain on his oaths. That means you're in the wrong, Niall. That means you're doing the wrong thing. If Galad wouldn't approve, you shouldn't be doing it.
As much as I would like to agree with you on that, Galad's sense of what you should and shouldn't be doing might be a little black and white. There's some grayness in there, but in fairness, yes, there's no question that what Patron Niall is doing falls on the bad side of that.
This is why Galad is a good leader of the White Cloaks, right? When Niall falls, it's like, oh, Niall was kind of okay compared to Valda. Like, Galad is who replaces Valda, and he's so much better than Niall. And I think that this shows why.
But also, an evolved Galad, and a Galad who has engaged with Perrin, engaged with Ta'Veren, been changed by that interaction, and is able to see things in shades of gray that he never could before.
Yeah, he leads the children before that transition, but it's through a pretty dire time when there's not a lot of bad, good decisions for him to make. He's trying to leave them through a swamp and survive. So, but yeah, no, Galad has to go through a pretty big arc, but it's just like, Niall, maybe you've gone to the dark side. Smidge. Whatever. And I mean, yeah, I do think that Galad would have been what would Galad have done, though? Because Niall's not abusing Morghese. And that's why Galad flips out, is because Valda was abusing Morghese. What would Galad have done if he had known?
I think he would have just been willing to take her away and free her. Although, it's interesting because she wants something from the White Cloaks. So I think he would have just struggled with following orders. Because, like, what if his mother was like, free me? Then what?
Right.
Like, it's not necessarily like what he would do just knowing it, but what if they met and she like had orders for him or wanted him to do something that directly violated his oaths?
What would he do?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Make a Twitter poll or something. What would he have done? Maybe we should discuss that at SpoilerCon.
Galad is such an easily conflictable character because if he always does what's right, well, it's so easy to come up with a circumstance in which two right things contradict each other. And then you have to say, well, what does he do then? And we almost see that when he runs into the girls.
In Sienda?
In Sienda, yeah. And he is going to... They're like, well, right now he's dealing with two conflicting priorities, right?
Yeah.
One, he's either supposed to bundle us up and protect us and send us home, or two, we're women who can channel in a town where it's illegal to channel. And the fact that we haven't channeled is the only thing preventing him from, like, locking us up. Like the letter of the law. And so like it was very much a technicality there that he got off on, but they weren't technically channeling, they only could channel.
Well, in fairness, that was Elaine's interpretation of what Galad was thinking. That's not actually what Galad was thinking.
I trust her.
I don't.
As her brother?
She is so overreactionary and ridiculous about Galad at that point in the series. That's book 5.
But that he will do what's right no matter what is true.
I don't think that he would have considered turning them in to be right. I think we see from his POV that he would never have considered that. And I don't think he ever would have, because he thinks that the White Cloaks are misguided about a couple of things but have fundamentally good beliefs. He wouldn't instantly struggle with, should I turn them in to my commander? I don't believe that for a second. I think that's Elaine being very dramatic. But if they'd been channeling, maybe it would have been weirder. But I don't think that he would ever have turned her in, because he wants to, I think he already has visions of reforming the children a little bit, because of the way he justifies being part of it to Min.
I think you're giving Galad way too much credit because he's pretty.
Just because I fan cast Alexander Vlahos in the role doesn't mean anything.
I think up until Towers of Midnight, he's pretty black and white, and it's only once Perrin and his mother force him to see shades of gray that he changes.
No, see, I agree with you about that. I just don't think that he agrees with the White Cloaks about what is black and white. He's not an independent thinker, but he's also more interested in the source material than in the chain of command.
That's fair. And he believes very much in the book that, speaking of which, Valda gave him, which are sort of the founding ideals of the White Cloaks. But the founding ideals of the White Cloaks and what the White Cloaks are actually doing are two very different things. And so I can see where that may be where some of the conflict is coming from.
Yeah, that's my interpretation. And for chat, Alexander Vlahos. I don't know how to say his last name, but there's a picture in chat now of him on the cast from Versailles. And yeah, he's my fan cast for Galag because he's real pretty. And the character he plays is a real character who was a very openly gay brother of King Louis XIV, and also like his main general person. But yeah, he's real pretty. So I'm not biased in the slightest, is the TLDR to that.
Yeah. One thing that it feels like we're swapping kind of smoothly between Morgase's POV and Pedro Niles' POV.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a little bit of trouble pinning down which one we're in, because I feel like we start out in Morgase's POV here.
I think the whole thing is from him. Yeah, I think the whole thing is from his perspective. But he's really focused on her, and he's really trying to get into her head. So
that's fair. Yeah, no, there's some passages here that make me think that we're in her head, but you're right, it is all from his perspective as I read through it. So here's the line that's throwing me off. Morgase drew in on herself at the sight of Omirna, so small emotion most men would not have noticed. She believed him the spy master for the children. So this whole sentence is Niall speculating on Morgase's beliefs, which is what keeps throwing me off, because I read that and it's all about how like she believes that Balwer is Niall's dry little stick of a secretary, but it's Niall thinking that, so it's Niall thinking about himself in third person. It's a very weird circular sort of little paragraph of who's thinking about what.
But yeah, Omerna's bursting in with some of Niall and Balwer's own rumors. That's right. The cover for why he burst into the room and wants to get close to him and all that is literally rumors that they seeded.
There's that. There is the tube, the message that he received.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Like, I'm interrupting you because you told me to interrupt you because you were waiting for this message to come in from
his agents in Tanchico about how Terabon is completely falling apart.
Right, and this is now he's getting confirmation on what he thought was rumors and madness from one of his agents. Like, he sent another agent in to get confirmation, and it's confirmation of the Shan Chan, basically.
Right. Like, he was just looking to see if there was, like, a discount on the tanning beds in Tanchico, and if they had, like, a weekend getaway thing where, like, a bunch of people could all go out and do that. But turns out actually everything's on the other kind of fire where there's an invading army and all the tanning salons are closed.
Yeah, it's kind of hard when you have the Shan Chan just bombarding the entire beaches with ships. It's like D-Day,
Yeah, basically.
Hard to lay out your blanket.
Super hard.
And yeah, he's going through all of these things. And of course, we've all had this experience when the little kids like, check out the movie, or like, repeating something that you've heard for the 300th time. Like, yeah, you're an annoying kid, just go away, I'm busy, I'm reading over here. And then they jump on your balls. I
avoid children, so I'll take your word for it.
And that is exactly what happens here with Omirna. Is Niall's like, yeah, kid, whatever, I know you have your wacky theories, but just keep it to yourself over there. And then all of a sudden, just getting stabbed and be like, "Oh God, what? Oh no, that's bad."
Yeah, and Morgase has left at this point. He dismisses her, and she skirts around Omerna because she's scared of him, and she leaves. So that way, she has no idea what happens in this meeting. She's in this chapter. She's in this POV. She has no idea the truth of what happened, and I don't know that Balwer ever tells her what happened. He knows what happened because he sees everything before it gets cleaned up, but I don't know that he ever tells her, because what purpose would that serve?
I mean, I think she figures out he was assassinated. And the fact that Valda takes power, I don't think she's that dumb at the Game of Houses to think that Valda didn't set that up.
But she believes that Omerna is a spy master.
Yeah, that's true. There is that.
So, like, she would credit Omerna with being able to do this and having thought it up. I don't know, though. And it's not like it really matters, right? Niall dies at the end, and she gets handed over to worse people. So does it matter who killed who first? Not really.
Not really. Yeah, not to her anyway.
Yeah, not from where she's sitting.
Right.
It matters to us because we're nerds, but
some orders have been sent to Jacob Carradine concerning Elaine. Yes. And I assume that's just kidnap her and bring her back?
Well, she does get a letter from him, and she stomps on it, and that gives her the fire to assert her authority with the other Aes Sedai, which is a great scene. But at the same time, they do almost get kidnapped in a nearby chapter. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were multiple iterations of those orders. You know, like if you can't get her to come by persuasion, then get her to come by force.
There's also, Jacob Carradine being a dark friend and having a whole nother set of orders on top of that.
Right, especially because he gets involved with Alviarin, who is being directed by Moghedian, who has a thing about Nynaeve.
Right.
So, there could be a lot. Jacob Carradine could have a lot of reasons to be hunting Elaine and Nynaeve down. I do think that Niall's orders probably start with a letter and then maybe move to kidnapping and maybe don't. I don't know. I think Niall would probably kidnap her. That seems like a thing he would do.
Yeah, I just assume he wants... Because he's looking for leverage over Morghese at this point. So he has possession of one of her children, and he's desperately looking for the other two in order to control them. And, Gawain is probably a hopeless cause because he's in with the witches. But Elaine, at least, because she's out in the middle of Abu Dar, man, yeah, kidnap her, bring her back.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think that's what Jacob Carradine's supposed to be doing.
But he does play his hand a little bit by sending her that note, being like, hey, by the way, we have your mother and you should come over to Amadisia. So he sort of reveals his hand a little bit with that note.
What are the contents of that note, exactly?
Okay, so I was just listening to the audiobook of this the other day. So they just got back with the Bowl of the Winds. No, they're just about to go get the Bowl of the Winds. And Elaine is getting grilled about the kin. And Pole comes in with a note brought by Tylan from Jacob Carradine. And Elaine reads it, and it says something about your mother is in the Fortress of Light and is most anxious to be reunited with you. I will provide escort for you to go back there. And then Elaine channels it into Ash, because that's obviously ridiculous, turns around and adults at the Aes Sedai for the first time, and things fall out from there. So I think he's trying to go for the low-effort kidnapping before he goes for the high-effort kidnapping.
That's an interesting thread that takes us all the way from Padron Nile to actually discovering the Bowl of the Winds.
It helps stiffen her backbone for discovering the Bowl of the Winds.
Yeah, it really kind of does. It's like, good job, Padron Nile.
I was thinking about this the other day, and I hadn't quite put that all the way together. Good job, Padron Nile. You did one thing right. You're still ahead of Gawain, so...
Bambi is clarifying that she gets really upset because, referring to my mother, and she thinks her mother's dead, and she's just being mocked. That's why she doesn't take it seriously. She thinks it's just an outright lie.
Yeah, how dare you mock me with my mother's death? I've already come to... This is such a lie. So obvious.
He's like startled cat being like, what? I have your mother. I told you the truth. She's like yelling in his face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. Yelling, not yelling. Yeah, no, please don't yell. Yes. So yeah, those orders are en route currently and most of the way to Jacob Carradine at this point. And Niall feels old. Amyrna feels sweaty because Amyrna thinks that he's the spy master assassinating the dude, and it's really scary.
Well, I mean, he's assassinating the captain commander. It is pretty scary, no matter what.
He's such a clown.
The writing was not that of Veridin, but of Phaser. And we know Veridin was the guy who we thought was insane. We've seen him send a few notes already. He was like the carpet merchant undercover or something like that.
A rug merchant.
The rug merchant, yeah.
The Light Send It was all of Rug Merchant's madness.
Sent to Terabon for a different purpose. Niall's stomach twisted into a knot as he read. It was in clear language, not the cipher. Veridin's reports had been the work of a man on the brink of madness, if not over. Yet Phaser confirmed the worst of it, and more. Much more. Althor was a rabid beast, a destroyer who must be stopped, but now a second mad animal had appeared, one that might even be more dangerous than the Tarvalon witches with their tame false dragon. And that, of course, is the Shan-Chan. For now, he realized the Shan-Chan are serious. And that's important because the Shan-Chan, frankly, are about to invade this castle in a couple of weeks.
If this news hadn't died with him, they might not have been so completely ruined when the Shan-Chan show up. That's the note that he's clutching at the end that's soaked in a puddle of wine.
He's like, prepare for battle.
About this. And they have no idea. I mean, Valda has no idea.
Nope.
None. Good job, idiot.
Yeah, that's what happens when you don't have a proper transition of power in place between two different regimes, right? When you just don't provide any communication, vital information falls...
Very important national security threats.
Fall down between the cracks. Yeah.
Yes.
Niall being dyed and splaying over the board, and pieces go everywhere, and blood. It's all very cinematic, and like you just see the overhead dramatic shot as he like splays out across the table, like.
No, Myrna's like holding him up and like crying and like pushes him away and
Renaissance sort of
Yeah.
painting. And then overhead, you got the big golden sun on the floor, and so he's like dying, like blood flowing over the golden sun with the black and white pieces scattered.
Conveniently in like a fang shape.
Oh, totally
just
like a fang shape.
coincidentally.
Definitely it'll be a fang shape.
Oh my god, yeah, totally. This like Shakespearean drama with just the cinematography. How many years until we get to this moment in the show?
And then, of course, Valdo comes running in, and of course, he's the one who set Omerna up to do this in the first place. He's the one who talked him into it.
Absolutely.
We've seen the work up to that. We've seen him planning it out. Like, we've seen the little hints for it, and then he says, "Oh, you killed the Captain Commander. Die, traitor!"
Treason!
And that's how you get the other half. That's how you get the fang of the
Yes.
of blood.
Yes.
So that fills in the rest, and we get the whole circle of gold fills in. And of course, because the gold is inlaid in the floor, the blood will automatically meniscus to the full circle.
Yeah, and then also Omerna can be in the position of a reverse hanged man for the tarot symbolism.
Definitely. Wraith, listen up.
Yeah, like you can have those ideas for free.
free.
Just like send us some swag. That's all we want.
An interview with Rosamund Pike. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah,
that's fine. So with the death of Omerna, we lose probably one of the dumbest characters
So
in
useless.
Wheel of Time, except maybe like Weiramon.
Honestly, Weiramon serves more of a purpose with all of his like army bungling and like leading armies into things. Like Omerna is truly useless.
And you can actually argue that Weiramon was pretending to be dumb in order to be a traitor.
Yes. Weiramon was definitely using his stupidity as a way of sabotaging stuff, but he did it way more effectively than Omerna actually trying and failing at anything.
An interesting fact is Valda is a swordmaster, and I think he's legitimately one, right? Like,
He got it in the 5 Blade Masters sat in unanimous agreement. He got it that way. He didn't kill a Blade Master, but he did perform such that 5 Blade Masters were like, yes. You know, like the Spock Kirk nod back and forth. Had to get that.
yeah, and I see him, he's on the class of, you've got Valda who fights Galad, Galad who fights Demandred who fights Lamb. Like, we have all of these sort of like, and none of those battles are complete blowouts. You can say they're all on a similar level of skill.
Yeah, no, for sure. Valda is the least qualified of all of them, and he is completely qualified. Yeah, and he's not a dark friend. He's just an asshole with skills. He doesn't have supernatural abilities. He's just practiced a lot.
Bors is our only white cloak dark friend, as far as I'm aware. All the other ones are just assholes.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that there are more.
Yes.
And certainly all the ones who Fane collects become Fane-flavored dark friends.
Yeah, I would...
But those wouldn't be necessarily dark friends because it's not the same evil.
Fane friends?
Fane friends. Yeah.
Because they don't
totally.
worship the Dark One anymore. They're all about being mined... I mean, they're zombies, really, at that point. But Fane-fried friends.
Say that 5 times fast.
Fane-fried friends, Fane-fried friends, Fane-fried Fred, Fane-fried... No, I can't do it.
But yeah, so Bors Cardin is the only confirmed dark friend white cloak that I can think of. It makes sense, though. I mean, you are sort of committed ideologically against the dark. Like, you're not going to attract a lot of people that want to be dark friends into that.
See, whereas I would say, I think the White Cloaks have a whole, you want power first and justice second. And that is a magnet for dark friends.
But what power do they get?
Power of the police.
Yeah, we do know how seductive that is, don't we?
Uh-huh. Yeah, we do.
I was just listening to Wheel Takes' latest episode today. I think it was a Niagara Falls neckline, I think was the title. But they're in book 5. That's why I knew the name of Sienda right off, because that's where they're at in the story. But Gus was describing Amadicia to Allie, and she's like, "This sounds like a police state."
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that is true. But they really are the Team America, fuck yeah, world police state kind of. That is.
In a lot of ways, it's what the Aiel are supposed, or they should be what the Aiel are supposed to become, which is the international police state that various rulers can go to settle disputes. And like, if the White Cloaks actually had the name of justice in hand and weren't their own power-hungry crazy people, they actually could do a favor between these nations and moderating disputes. But they're not, and they don't, and they're terrible.
And that's why everybody hates them.
And they torture people.
What. Every nation is like,
right.
Ugh.
And it's like, rather than moderating power disputes, they torture people into admitting their dark friends and then kill them for it.
Yeah, so the kind of bully that would become an institutional bully would also likely be a dark friend. And so there's probably lots and lots of dark friend White Cloaks, but we just never see them because of the POVs that we follow.
And I mean, look at the actions of these White Cloaks. They walk in and they'll kill whole villages just to like make sure no one knows they're coming through, right? Like,
in the name of national security.
Right, in the name of what? Yeah. But it's in the name of God, in the name of the light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sword in one hand and Lothar Mantiar's pamphlet in the other.
Have you found the dragon? Well, and then what I find even funny is then what we have here is almost you have a police state going up against a religious faction, because one of the things that Valda realizes, one of his first challenges, is he has to go up against the prophet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who is challenging him on his own ground, right? All this chaos that's happening next door is going to leave the White Cloaks' country completely unguarded and in chaos to the prophet's people.
Yeah, the prophet's mobs.
The mobs, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that he sees the prophet as the most immediate threat. Not the Dragonsworn, not rumbles of invaders off to the west, but the religious zealots with mob energy. That's who he sees as the biggest threat to his police state and his hostile takeover of what was ostensibly a religious organization and is now just a military organization.
Takes one to know one.
Niall has kind of a sad death. He gets really confused and in the fog, and it's like, I don't like him, but I do think that his death is appropriately tragic the way it's written.
He's considered one of the great commanders. You know, a lot of what we don't like about him too is, don't forget, he's been touched by Fane, and he's got that suspicion. So a lot of his sort of more suspicious, more, you know, really his whole plan to undercut the Dragon Reborn, well, there was no way he was ever going to trust Rand. Was Gawain ever touched by Fane?
I think you brought this up on one of our prior prologue things, and no, it never happened, and it takes away Gawain's agency to be a douche.
I know. I always want him. He's just so... He hates Rand despite everything. And I want that to be either compulsion or Fane influence, or like, how can you be... I don't want him... He can't be that dumb. He can't... Anyway, we'll get to that when we get to that.
We'll get to that when we get to that. For now, do you want to get into Valda's head?
You know, obviously this was all his plan. There's a little bit of a interesting twist here where Asanawan's like, don't give mercy to Patron Nile or I'll accuse you of killing him. Mm-hmm. I never really understood that. Do you know what Asanawa was going for there? Is it just like, I tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and I torture it?
It's this passage here. Asunawa had a love of truth, a strange love. He could tie it into knots or hang it up and flay it while it screamed. But so far as Valda knew, he never actually lied. He's got an Aes Sedai's approach to the truth, which I'm sure he'd be very insulted to hear, but it's true.
It's amazing how much Asanawa resembles an Amyrlin seat of the White Cloaks, right? You got the White Cloaks versus the White Tower. He calls everyone my son, as opposed to calling them my daughter.
Yeah.
He has the crook, but no sunburst.
And he's puppet mastering the agents. He's not actually doing things. He's puppet mastering things.
Right. Now, there's just an interesting little parallel there. It's not a hard one, but the whole, like, he calls everyone my son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I think if there is a position within... I mean, the Lord Captain Commander is kind of like the Amyrlin. But the High Inquisitor's not far off either, particularly with this kind of power transition. Maybe the Keeper or, a really powerful sitter, like...
Well, you don't have this kind of split in the White Tower the way you do...
Yeah, it's not a perfect one-to-one.
No, because there really are two groups inside the White Cloaks, inside the Children of the Light. There are the Questioners and the non-Questioners, and Asanawa rules the Questioners.
If there's any parallel, maybe it would be that the Questioners are like the Red Aja.
Yeah.
And he's the head of the Red.
Or the Black.
Well, yeah, except that the Black isn't acknowledged, whereas the Questioners are.
But if you think about it, like, the Black, that's about a third of the Aes Sedai. That's more equivalent in terms of numbers.
For sure.
Of number of people in the White Cloak. So, like...
So he's very Alviaran, then.
Yeah, there's a little Alviaran going on there, yeah.
Yeah, which really works because Alviaran is both Keeper and Head of the Black.
Right.
So that works really well for creating this comparison and saying, yeah, Asinawa is kind of like an Aes Sedai in a really messed up way.
He acts like one. If only through his own personal virtues rather than the oaths he had to swear.
Right. His internal zealotry rather than whatever else. Yeah, and Valda is very dismissive of questioners because they don't fight honestly, which, like, I mean, I can kind of get with that, Yeah, the people who only deal with torturing bound people.
Not exactly the bravest, no.
No, not a lot of respect to be had there, no.
And I used to get Valda and Asanawa confused all the time because they are in so many of these things together and they're both scumbags, but you really just, Valda is sort of, he looks like a hero, he looks like a captain commander, he looks like a battlefield leader. Asanawa looks like a torturer, he looks like a questioner. Like, they both look like their roles very much, and act like them. Even though they're both scumbag leaders of the White Cloaks, you just have to remember, like, the torturer, Asanawa, looks like, a dried up old sunken-eyed.
Yeah, martyr, like, he looks sort of demonic, like a Sith Lord or something. And then, yeah, Valda looks, Valda is nicer to look at. And then they're arguing about what to do with Morghese, because Asinawa wants to torture and kill Morghese, and Valda wants to use her and then give her over to the Questioners. And at first isn't going to let her get tortured, and then decides to let Asinawa get just a little bit of torture and not let Morghese know that that's all that's going to happen. Let her think that he's willing to let that happen to her more, even though he, with Asinawa here in this conversation, he's clearly not. But he's like...
Well, but once he's done with her, once they've actually... Yeah, no, he's willing to let her be softened up a little bit. That whole, like, oh, you do what I say or else you go back to the Questioners. Like, he's more than willing to use them in that way, shape, or form. But he needs her to take over Andor, and he's no dummy. He knows that's Patron Niall's goal, right? Patron Niall wants to take over Andor. Valda's like, yeah, that's a great idea. I want to take over Andor as well, right? No problem. Like, you've got the tools. His priorities are a little bit different, and of course he doesn't know about the Shan-Chan, so...
And I think, like you were saying before about how White Cloaks want power, Valda here is very much setting up it might take me years to let you have the Queen of Andor. I can keep her for a plaything as long as I want while I work on getting Andor, right? And, like, he can hold that threat over her head for as long as he wants, and Asinawa will get her eventually when Valda's done with her, which I bet would be like 10, 15 years down the line if Valda had his way.
And also it helps keep Asinawa in line, because it's like, oh, you want her? Do what I say.
Right, yeah, no, it would have worked out very well for Valda if the Shan-Chan weren't a factor. I mean, also Balwer would have, spirited her away, which was going to happen.
That's right, Balwer. I love Balwer. He's such a good dude.
I know. Balwer's like, the second that I saw that assassination happen, I had a plan, and it involved getting the Queen of Andor away from Valda. Number one goal.
Well, and Balwer, of course he knows exactly what was going on. He knows Omerna was manipulated. Like, he put that together immediately as soon as he saw the... Yeah, instantly. And he hates Valda. All that hate about White Cloaks, well...
That's Valda.
That's Valda. And it's because he really wants to work for someone who's competent. And Patron Niall was incredibly competent. And, like, yeah, he had some blind spots, don't get me wrong. But, like, with follow-up information, with confirmation, all of a sudden he believes that the Shan-Chan are there. Like, that was one of his big problems, is he didn't believe in them. Now he does. Like, he's willing to admit that he's wrong when he gets follow-up evidence. And he's willing to change his strategy, like a great general should. He's a much more competent commander than, any of these other people are. And the fact that the White Cloaks are the powerhouse that they are and have a freaking country under their belt is almost entirely due to Patron Nile.
Balor is so interesting because I want to like him for what we see him do, but also he chose to work for a really bad organization for however many decades, and I'm not sure that being awesome in the last 3 months before the apocalypse actually absolves him of that. But he's awesome. He's awesome to read. His role to play is so great. The way that he gets Perrin to realize some of his own potential is just so important. And the fact that he instantly was like going to take Morghese out of here. He's useful. He's a really useful story device, even though I'm conflicted about how much I like him.
He dry washes his hands all the time. That's definitely when he's nervous or upset.
Which I do. So, like, I empathize with him a lot.
And you see him there. Once Valda is killed, he immediately starts dry washing his hands. I'd love to, that's one of those, drink every time Balor dry washes his hands, right? It needs to be on the drinking list, because, it's one of those physical tics that Jordan likes to use, like the crossing of their arms under their breasts, or the sniffing, or all those sorts of things. Well, for Balor, it's dry washing his hands. That's how you know he's a nervous wreck.
What I think is interesting when Balor comes in is what he looks at and what he doesn't look at. Is a very interesting thing where, first of all, I think he chooses to gasp. I'm not convinced that was an involuntary gasp. I think he chooses his moment to announce himself. Granted, within probably 0.5 seconds of seeing everything, but I think it's a choice. And even if it's not, he looks at everything except the bodies stretched out on the floor until he leaves, when he doesn't look at anything but the bodies on the floor. And knowing Balor, there's something going on there. That's not just a random detail. That means something.
I had completely missed the fact that I bet Balor had been standing in that doorway for a while before he gasped, listening to the conversation between Asanawa.
He's too careful to gasp involuntarily.
You're right. That's such a good catch.
But of course they all underestimate him, so they assume that it was an involuntary gasp and that he is just a secretary, blah, blah, blah. Which is great. I love that Asunawa is just as clueless as Valda.
Sorry, you're blowing my mind a little bit. I need to read over this section again while I'm like, whoa, wait. Is he,
I'm apparently blowing Bambi's mind, too.
Okay, so that's pretty short. I don't see any more. I don't catch any more to that. But no, that's such a great little... It's one of the reasons why he knows what's going on. Of course the Spy Master would stand in the doorway and listen before he announced himself.
And I think it has to do with the slip of paper that Niall was trying to draw attention to.
Oh, you think he was trying to look at the slip of paper, and that's why he was looking at the body?
Well, I think at first he didn't look at the bodies because he didn't want to draw attention to this piece of paper that he definitely noticed.
Gotcha.
And he's looking all around, and then once Niall has died, once the last breath has gone out, once the paper has been destroyed, then Balor is able to look and allow himself that little moment of my master has died and I need to deal with this. And yes, the message has been ruined, so Valda won't get it.
And we know Balor hates it that Valda got those messages privately and they didn't go through him.
Niall, he he got really annoyed that he's like, I'm supposed to see everything.
Right. And this is a problem. He doesn't know what's in that message and he'll never find out.
But he does know that Valda won't know either.
That's true.
And that's the victory he can salvage from this. And it makes me think too of the show from HBO, Rome, when Caesar gets killed, his servant goes back and gets his body, or his slave goes back and gets his body, and there's this whole really intense trauma of I was your slave, but also we were together for 30 something years. And I feel like Balor doesn't even get the closure of getting to go back for Niall's body. He doesn't ever get to say goodbye to this person who was his close colleague for however many decades. And I feel a little bad for Balor for that, because that's an intense relationship to just have ripped away with no closure ever.
Oh, and I did notice I looked this up, the silver pitcher bounced and splashed wine. So the wine that the note is in is from the pitcher that he knocked over when he was stabbed. So it's not just the cup of wine although he had a cup of wine in his hand as well. So he must have had a cup of wine in one hand and the note in the other.
Right, because he was having a nice evening with Morghese playing Stones. There was a lot of wine.
That's a good point, yeah. Well, at least he went out happy. Winning his game of Stones.
He was having a good day.
Yeah, but he did. He had a good day.
And then we have Eamon Valda thinking, essentially what we get repeatedly throughout this prologue is that I am going to save the world. I'm going to bring the witches and their false dragon to heel. Eamon Valda's going to do this. And it's just like, with the self-aggrandizing savior complex in this prologue.
Oh, yeah, no, it's like, this prologue was Jordan sat down and says, okay, who are all the idiots who think they're going to save the world? Let me write their POVs.
Yep.
All the
Pretty
people who
much.
think they're the chosen and aren't, and are just going to, gum up the works by thinking they're the ones in control. Elida thinks that if she's in control, everything's going to go her way. And then we get the whole, like, no, well, you know who's controlling Elida? Yeah, Alviarin. You know who's controlling Alviarin? Masana. You know who's controlling Masana? And then it just, like, goes up the chain, and then you go back to this, and it's like, and we go it again. It's like, Pedro Nile thinks he's in charge, but he gets killed by Omerna, who's being manipulated by Valda, who's actually talking to Asanawa, and meanwhile, Balor and Morghese are doing their own thing in the background. The whole thing is just...
There's that dream, I think, in Dragon Reborn from Egwene about puppets whose strings go up to more puppets, whose strings go to more puppets up into the clouds. It very much foreshadows how one goes through the rest of the series. And then we're done with the chapter because Gawain has nothing useful to say.
Yeah, I think we can just skip the Gawain section.
Yeah.
We're done. No. I assume no one else there wants to hear about Gawain. They're just, yeah. So yes, we do get a Gawain section, which we thought we'd go over very quickly. One of the reasons we didn't have a guest on this episode is we're like, oh, it's a Gawain episode. With just the two of us, we'll get through it faster.
Yeah. Which, at an hour and 13 minutes is clearly true.
Actually, yeah, if we're not going to hit 2 hours, this is definitely faster than we normally make it through an episode. I can't remember the last time we were under 2 hours with a guest. Doesn't happen, guys. Does not happen.
Well, apparently MK can help us stretch out Gawain perspectives if we ever need in the future.
Okay, that sounds good. But what if I don't want them to stretch out?
Well, then you're just going to have to make up a bunch of excuses and hope that MK never figures out that that's your game.
Okay, fair enough. Good thing I didn't just say it out loud in front of her.
Yeah,
No.
it's real sneaky there.
So, this is Gawain post Dumai's Wells. Basically, once he saw the Aes Sedai breaking during Dumai's Wells, he gathered a band of the younglings, and they fought through a bunch of Shido to the edge and broke out.
Yeah, they bail before Rolling Ring of Earth and Fire?
Yes, but I would assume basically when the dome goes up.
Yeah, no, I remember there's a thing where someone, Rand has to yell at the Ashaman not to attack the younglings as they leave.
Mm-hmm.
So that has to be, in the moments before the dome goes up and all that. Yeah, so they make it out ahead of Rolling Ring of Earth and Fire, right on their heels, basically.
Well, and I also assume Rolling Ring of Earth and Fire really only hits the Shido, because the Shido have been pressing in, and any other group was fighting to get out.
Right, so Gawain, cuts his way out.
Right.
However many paces ahead of Rolling Ring of Earth and Fire. But they're on horses and they're trying to get out, so it's not surprising that they were able to cut through the Aiel relatively quickly.
Only losing 2/3 of their number.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Because he says, what are the numbers here? 500 down to
brutal.
200?
He brought 581, but fewer than 200 waited on their horses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's also, a lot of that was the plot to kill him. That was picking people off before.
But I do think that most of those losses occurred in Dumai's Wells, and that certainly wasn't the plan. Although, the plan was to have the Shido take out the younglings. And so, in a way, that battle is how they would have died.
But they didn't kill the one youngling that needed to be killed in order to actually ruin the forest, right? The rest of them would have gone their own way without Gawain. But
You can argue Rand, Perrin, and the Ashaman saved Gawain's life.
Damn it, Rand!
That without that distraction, there's no way Gawain would have gotten away. Sivana absolutely would have killed him.
Yep. Damn it, time. Why?
Couldn't you have waited just a little longer, maybe? Just go ahead and let the Shido take out Gawain? That would have been nice.
Because, yeah, he's over here with he wished he could have killed off Thor for his mother.
Yeah. Okay, so he sees this Aes Sedai fleeing. He's sort of waiting. He's trying to regroup outside the battle, looking for anyone else that may have escaped. Do we get any idea who this Aes Sedai is or what her ultimate fate is? Yeah?
This is Galena.
This is Galena.
We see from her POV the next time we see her, or her first POV, we hear about this exact moment of her horse stumbling with the arrow in its side and being captured. She reflects on this moment.
I did not make that connection in the slightest.
So she was about to get away. She was like, I'm gonna make it. Arrow hits her horse, and then everything becomes a blurry nightmare, and then you pop into the present day with her being Sivana's, plaything or whatever. Oh, we pop in when Tharava meets up with the rest of the Shido. That's when we catch up with her. So that's in 3 books or so.
So the reason we don't see any trace of her is she was basically taken by the Aiel.
That's why there's a dress on the ground. He doesn't mention it, but that dress is cut.
Oh.
Just like when they find Fael's dress all split off of her, that's what they find here. He doesn't mention that it's cut open, but that's definitely what happened. That's why there's a dress blowing on the ground.
Thank you so much. That is, yeah, okay. Mind-blowing. I had no idea. I was like, it seems so odd that we get this random comment about the sister who escapes and never could figure out who the hell that was.
That is Galena.
That is Galena.
And I hate how Gawain on one part of this page is like, I have to kill Rand, but I can't. I have to save these younglings, but also I have to go after an Aes Sedai who was almost definitely trying to get my people killed. I'm going to risk more of my people to go rescue this person. And I'm just like, your priorities! Ugh.
Although, I mean, he's probably thinking 2 things. A, healing could be very useful for those survivors.
Fair.
And B, someone's got to answer for this disaster, and he doesn't want it to be him.
That's super fair.
Going back to Elida with no one to take blame.
Yeah?
I mean, that's what happens. He basically gets put out to pasture.
Yeah, no, he even thinks about how he needs someone else to answer for that. So yeah, it makes me want to headcanon that Fane somehow got to him and gave him undue loyalty to the tower. Mm-hmm. And that whole, the tower's authority is what drives your life, not anything else. And that's why he feels so much need to collect a sister, even though it might be lethal to his people.
And also why he is so obsessed with hating Rand, even though there's, he's like, what's the quote here? But she said he didn't kill her mother, but she has no evidence. I'm like,
you have no
that's
evidence.
The wrong thing. You have no evidence either. Yeah. And that's where I have to assume, come up with this theory that, Fane and Fane's hatred for Rand, which is partially what he infects people with, is hatred for the Dragon Reborn, is what is driving Gawain's hatred for Rand and his need to kill him without any evidence, totally irrationally. And we know Fane was in the White Tower. We don't see them interact. But they were in the White Tower at the same time.
For weeks. Fane was around for weeks. Gawain was around for months. We're going to keep looking for evidence, and we're going to withhold judgment for now.
And it may have been one of those doors that Jordan left open for himself and decided not to walk through. Mm-hmm. It's entirely possible.
For sure.
But yeah, it's hard to not imagine that this incredible irrational hatred for Rand doesn't come from Fane, because that's what Fane does.
Yeah, especially when it couples so well with his irrational love for the authority of the tower and how he switches allegiances as soon as he knows that Egwene is the Amerlin. It just, those loose ends match up really good. It makes the headcanon pretty decent.
Right? I mean, I don't want to I love the fact that we all hate on Gawain. But what if it wasn't his fault? What if?
No, it has to be his fault. It has to be his fault.
I think you're taking satisfaction in the hate.
First you accuse me of being swayed by a pretty face, and now you're accusing me of being swayed by petty reasons.
When I'm right, I'm right. What can I say?
No, I have my moments of being petty. It is a recreational pastime of mine.
Me too. It's so much fun.
I'm not good at it. Gawain is really my practice punching bag.
Well, and for the entire fan community, which is why I kind of like playing the devil's advocate a little bit with him and being like, but what if?
Mm-hmm. No, it's good. It's good. Debate is where the good stuff happens. So we get a mention of Jisao, who doesn't matter but shows up occasionally. Really young, really dangerous. And then they fight some Aiel, and Gawain has no honor. Bunch of sword forms.
Yeah. Okay, so we do get this battle between Gawain and the younglings versus the Aiel. And the fact that, his just under 200 younglings come out relatively well against 100 Aiel. Well, we've seen 100 Aiel take down twice their number easily. Like, these are some of the best warriors, best trained young warriors, and with experience, a lot of experience.
Yeah. They're not trying to fight these guys, which is part of why so many survive, is because the Yield are just trying to cut their way out.
That's a good point.
But
Yeah.
the fact that they could have taken out 200, Terrabone Lancers who didn't know what they were doing, but the younglings actually survive the wave washing over them. It's impressive.
It's by forming groups, by creating shield walls, by being skilled enough to stop the Aiel, and also by not being a primary target.
Yeah, well, yeah, but yeah, they have strategies, right? They've learned how to fight the Aiel. They've learned that you have to have 2 or 3 men together, otherwise there's no hope. And they have horses. Goblin's the only one fighting on foot, and he's, borderline blade master.
Yeah, and as much as the horses may not help the Aiel get places faster, they are really significant when it comes to battle.
These descriptions of war horses, scary.
Only the quickest of Aiel managed to get inside those circles of flashing steel. The war-trained horses themselves were weapons, splitting skulls with their hooves, seizing men with their teeth and shaking them like dogs worrying rats, jaws tearing away half a man's face. The horses screamed as they fought, and men grunted with effort. Horses. Yeah.
I mean, recreational horses can accidentally hurt the fuck out of you. Like, horses that aren't trying can really do serious injury. Horses that are trained? Horses that are trying? Oh, horses are big. I'm so scared.
Horseshoes are made of iron. I can kill somebody with a horseshoe, and I don't have a horse's leg attached to it.
Yeah. So
they are pieces of hard iron, right?
Yeah. So there's the horses that come to my field and mow the lawn. Sometimes they get on their backs and roll around, right? Because they need to scritch their spines or whatever, and they have to kick themselves over to do that. And there's these really deep divots in the field. This is they'll be 3 on each side because they only will use 1 foot to kick their entire 800-pound horse body over, and they've got shoes because they walk here on the road. So 6-7 inches of just a divot into the ground. It's that's a horse fooling around.
There's a reason we use horsepower as a measure of power, right?
Yeah.
They're strong animals, they're big animals, they're relatively smart, and they're trainable.
Yeah. Do not piss them off.
The Falcon Stoops is one of the first sword forms we get as he's fighting, which I imagine is an overhead sort of downward strike.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The Creeper Embraces the Oak.
It's gonna be some sort of whipping around kind of thing.
Yeah, I imagine entwining your sword with the other person's sword, or in this case spear, to disarm them, and then of course slashing at them. To the Moon Rises Over the Lakes. That one I imagine is sort of a horizontal sort of arc, right? So imagine a parabola of the moon makes in the sky in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So it's a big sweeping overhead kind of thing.
Arc. Yeah.
But not from behind you, but from left to right or right to left.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I imagine he comes down, entwines his sword with somebody, and then slashes across 3 heads.
I like that. That actually almost makes sense. I don't imagine action sequences well, but that almost makes sense.
And then he gets sort of an individual opponent he has to fight. He gets the Wood Grouse Dances. I have no idea what that one is. Probably squatting down and doing a little more jabbing, maybe?
I think wood grouse, and I think of those birds that have the big chest pouches that swell up so they can make weird booming calls across the prairie, and I just don't see how that relates to a sword form.
Me neither. The Wood Grouse Dances, I have no idea. Maybe it's a footing type thing, more than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Folding the air, I feel like that's just a wrist movement of bringing the sword over or something like that. It's a
maybe bringing the sword back towards you kind of thing.
And then the courier taps his fan. I think we've seen that a couple of times before, and we know that's just a quick strike.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a dink.
Yep.
Bop them with their sword.
And so he manages to slash the Aiel on the side. And then, they sort of thrust back and forth until a horse backs up into the Aiel, and Gawain kills him on a luck.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a whole, internal thoughts about honor, about how is it honorable to kill somebody simply because you have a momentary advantage on the battlefield. It does that because it doesn't... The contest is no longer decided by pure skill. It's decided by pure skill and luck. And what if the other person's more skilled, and doesn't that make him the better man, and doesn't he deserve to win? Like, there's all those thoughts sort of go through his head, and it's something I've thought about with Gawain too.
Yeah, his whole struggle with honor is very, like, there's bits of Matt and bits of Galad that, like, could apply to what his struggles are. And of course, he never talks to either of them, so he doesn't get... But, like, Matt's comment about, like, luck is a horse to ride like any other.
Yep.
But then also, you know, like, honor makes Galad tick.
Well, and sort of seeing his journey from one to the other. Of, like, once he would have thought that the honor was important, and now he's like, nope, just kill him and move on as quickly as you can.
Yeah, I don't have time for gallantry. I don't have time for honor. Survival is it.
Yeah, it makes me think Gawain has been ground down. Let's ignore the compulsion of the Fane influence. The people he is loyal to have been trying to get him killed for months, and continue to do so after he gets back. He has lost his family. He can't find his sister. His mother is dead. He's supposed to be protecting his country, but his loyalties are torn between the younglings that support the support the tower that brought down Suon, and Suon is the one who took his love away from him. You know, so there's all these conflicting loyalties in his head that just freeze him into place, because whenever he's loyal to someone, they abuse the hell out of him. And I'm including Egwene in there.
Oh yeah, his very first girlfriend, the first person he's probably ever been in any kind of love with at all, and she goes and hangs him out to dry until she can come back with, like, nothing. Like, he's been having basically the worst time. I mean, he's the worst person, but he's also been having the worst time.
The worst. Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, one does at least have to acknowledge that he hasn't exactly been having a sunshine and daisies experience for the past several months.
Now, he doesn't in any way redeem himself out of that. He falls into the pit of despair and fails repeatedly. But at least I can understand on some level why.
Yeah, no, they can be reasonable conflicts to face without being reasonable outcomes. And then, yeah, he says, no time to see who was dead and who might live. Forget them. That sister is waiting for us. I'm just like, you prioritize these people so much, and yet for a sister, you're willing to just, like, not even bother to stop for a tourniquet for a few seconds?
Right.
She's that much more important? Really? Really?
He walks away from the younglings. I mean, repeatedly, but also literally, right? Like, he has so little loyalty to the younglings.
Yeah.
They're such a tool for him.
An excuse. He uses them as an excuse, and it's infuriating because they actually buy his bullshit. They believe him, and he doesn't deserve that from them.
No, he doesn't deserve the loyalty of the younglings. And it's infuriating that no one sees through just how terrible he is. But they're young too. They're making mistakes too.
It's true. They go up there. They don't know who she was. I blow your mind about who she was.
All right, it's Galena. Wow.
And he thinks about how he needs a sister to explain this to Elida. And then we get him thinking about the butcher, because that's a repeated theme in this book, is the butcher's bill and all of that stuff. And I love the last line. The world would forget Dumais Wells in what was coming. He's actually correct about that. Dumais Wells is the war to start all wars. He correctly reads that situation.
And then I guess the only other character I wanted to bring up is this Canvel that we hear about a couple of times. He's a one-off. I just wanted to say Canvel, yeah.
I didn't even notice. Who's this person?
It's just, it appears that it's important that, like, his decision as to whether to support Valda seems to be the one who's, like, in charge of the tower.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's like getting all the other, like, sitters to agree. He just gets to stand in for the sitters.
But this is literally his only mention in the books. He doesn't come up again.
Just one mention.
It's unknown whether he survived the Battle of Jeramel, although it is known that 3 Lord Captains died there, and he was a Lord Captain. So, and that's the battle against the Shan-Chan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was always wondered what they called it.
Battle of Jeramel.
Well, we did it. We finished the prologue.
Prologue is done.
We finally got through Lightning's Part 4.
All right. Can't wait to start Chapter 1 on Tuesday. We'll be sitting down with Tom.
Oh, yeah. Tom's coming back. Sweet. You want to kill recording?
Yeah, let's turn recording off.
All right. Oh my god, I love the real green screen. I can hold this up and it never does that weird poppy through thing that the Zoom background does. It doesn't
Isn't that
matter
great? The real green screen plus the
real green screen.
high quality camera.
Yeah, the high quality camera's pretty dope. I need to hide self view so that I won't just stare at my beautiful face all the time. Hide self view.
I think I have to leave it on
Okay.
for the recording, which is like, oh no, my face.
Oh no.
So this morning one of the reasons we were messing with a bunch of settings is Aradia's restarting Broken Earth. I shouldn't say restarting, moving on to the second book of the Broken Earth trilogy.
Yeah, getting into season 2.
And our goal is to actually we're attempting to do a video cut of that and do that on YouTube, so...
Yeah, I'm hoping that is going to be a way for me to communicate my stuff in greater detail, because there's already a lot of visuals that go with it. So yeah, Seth kind of talked me into trying it out, and I really liked how it looked, even though it was stupid. So we went for another pass today, and we only broke it 3 times, I think.
Gonna be a process. It's a lot more moving parts.
But we have enough practice that we're ready to take on the challenge. We have a couple of pieces of news for people.
Yes, so subscribers should now have access to a playlist with all of these unedited videos. So, if you do not have time to come to a live recording, you can go to YouTube and see this playlist and see all the videos that we have been recording, and it's about as close as you can get to showing up in real time.
Yeah, we were happy to do Ravine. We're definitely not scrambling last minute to get our next one organized, so that way you can have regular Patreon content. And we're really excited to let you guys have these videos that will be the next best thing to live if you can't have live.
And I'm going to go ahead and put the YouTube link in the live recording text. Anyone with this link can see the videos. Please keep it to patrons only, because it is sort of that live experience. We're sort of trusting folks to keep that not widely distributed. But we're going to just start doing that now, which is basically every time we finish recording an episode, I'm going to throw some, an opening and closing on it and upload it to YouTube for folks to watch if they want to see me and Aradia sitting here with green screen backgrounds, talking and making all sorts of mistakes, and the totally unedited version.
Yeah, it's going to be a work in progress, but Fox and Raven Media is adding a new form of media, one way and another.
Videos coming.
It's essentially what's happening.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?